Hello everyone. So today I have a few more improvements. I have some makeup on, and today's video will be about generational trauma. So I know very light, right? But I feel like it's important to talk about this topic now. And I just want to say that this is again all from my experience. So, generational trauma, from what I understand it, is basically when we inherit stuff from our ancestors. It's not only DNA, it's not only genetic stuff. So, basically, how we look like, or diseases, or anything that's genetic material. But we also inherit things that are subconscious. Um, so it can be emotional wounds, it can be survival patterns, it can be fears, it can be beliefs about all sorts of things. And basically, these trickle down through generations. So, they get passed down from your grandparents to your parents to you until it reaches someone in the chain who needs to break these patterns and heal all these wounds. And generational trauma can actually be manifested in many, many different ways. It can be, for example, always having a recurring pattern happen in your life. And that could mean maybe it's a lesson that you need to learn, but it can also be maybe it's a generational lesson that you need to learn that in the past your family wasn't able to. Or it could be having emotions that are not actually yours. So, for example, if you've been feeling some sort of sadness, unexplainable anxiety that is not really pertaining to your life, or maybe it feels like a bit alien to you, that could mean that those emotions are actually from your ancestry line, from your, even great parents. Or it can be about having certain inherited beliefs about certain things, like, for example, money is evil, or it could be about the body. So things that are passed down through your family, but that maybe you don't even know why you believe that. It's just something that you inherited from them. um, the thing is that when we um, when we are a bit more sensitive, or maybe it can also be unconsciously, like you can feel it unconsciously, but it is that the body always reflects what the mind is basically going through. So, like I said, it could be you're always anxious about something. You can always have stomach pains or headaches. You're always hyper vigilant. And this is because the body is actually expressing what we cannot express, maybe, consciously. So, if you have some of these, or even all of them, the signs that I am going to explain, maybe you are, not suffering from, but you might be caught up in the cycle of generational trauma. So, the signs are, for example, lots of guilt, feeling always guilty about taking care of yourself, or even about other people. For example, you're always feeling like you're not doing enough for them. It could be fear of abandonment, or it could be fear of rejection. It could be difficulty in expressing emotions. It could be chronic anxiety, like I said. It could also be unhealthy beliefs. So it can mean that, for example, if you really look inside yourself, if you really tune in, you might be feeling like money is evil. You don't know why, but you just feel like it is true, because maybe your parents always told you that only that rich people are bad. And this maybe was told to them by their grandparents, because maybe they had something happening where someone who was rich hurt them. Or, it can be also that the body, like body shaming, for example, like you need to be a certain body type, body weight, in order to be successful, or in order to be accepted. But it can also be patterns of addictions. It can also be emotional neglect and codependency patterns. So if you, for example, it can happen that sometimes the parents have toxic behaviors in a relationship, and they find a partner that, you know, can even heighten these behaviors. And for some reason, you are following the same cycle. So you might wonder why you found a partner that, you know, mirrors the patterns that maybe your mother or your father had. And this is because the cycle is repeating. And that's because when there is a lesson to learn or a wound to heal, this will be transmitted to generations until it gets healed, because it needs to be solved. So there is also something that I've heard very recently, and that's why I've thought about this topic, because it just popped up more recently in my studies. Someone said that basically when they are going to a concert, for example, there are people who are older who have way more energy and throughout the night. And this person wasn't old, they were in their 40s, and they were like, I was exhausted by the end of the night. But this I don't know, people who were 70, 80, they were still, you know, having a lot of energy. And he said that this is because maybe people who, also younger generations now, tend to be a little more exhausted than previous generations. um, and what he said is that it's because the younger generations now are taking all the burdens from the previous generations, and they are working through it, whether consciously or unconsciously. With the subconscious mind, but they are working through this generational trauma, through all the wounds that need healing. And that's related to the concept of change, and the fact that, you know, the planet and people and humanity are all going through a change, but that's a different topic. But yeah, so basically, younger generations are more tired because we are working more on these things. And these, of course, these things take energy. They take a lot of energy from us. They take a lot of, like, healing takes a lot of energy from you. So, and maybe older generations, because they don't know better, they are not doing the work, so they have more energy to even, you know, live and in the body itself. So that's something that stuck to me. Like, it was something that it remained like close to my heart, is what he said, because basically my whole life I was always wondering about this. I was always thinking, how is it possible that I'm always so tired when I have a healthy lifestyle? I mean, I am not that old, and even when I was younger. Um, and my life was, it was hectic in a way, but it wasn't too much. So I was always wondering, how is it possible that I'm so exhausted when my grandmother, who was way older than me, right? She always had so much energy. And when he said that, it kind of fell into place that, yeah, it's because of this reason. It's because we are doing way more work. Of course, this doesn't mean that this is the case for everyone. There could be older generations who are going through this as well. And of course, not everyone who is older has so much energy. But in some ways, I think this is true for, you know, certain cases, and especially for my case. So that's something just I wanted to share. And also, I wanted to say that this doesn't mean that the parents are, or grandparents are, bad in any way. It just means that, you know, they weren't aware of this. All of these topics is something that was not very talked about. It was more like a taboo topic, or maybe it wasn't, you know, their life path. They had other missions in their life. So it's not that they are they are bad people, or you have to blame them, or I'm not saying it's all their fault. I'm just saying that this is something that happens, and I think it's important that if you feel like you could be the chain breaker, then you know what this is about. And so about the chain breaker, what I mean is that it's finally the person who realizes that this is happening, or feels like, you've ever felt like the black sheep of the family, or you've ever felt different, or maybe you have started questioning, why does why do I always find partners who mirror what my mother was going through, or the qualities that my mom's partners had that were toxic? Or you start thinking different from your family. Why does my family believe that money is evil? So you start noticing these patterns, you start being aware of this. And I believe that there are many, many people in this world now that have this job or this mission to heal all the past wounds, and so that they don't continue also during in the new earth, basically in the evolved version of earth that is going to happen. So I believe that this chain breaker is like an alchemist, and I believe that they we are the ones who should transmute all those low vibrations into something higher, into so we transform the pain that was just repeated throughout the generations into healing. And I believe we do this, like I said, it can be consciously. So we notice patterns, we ask questions, we are different. Or it can be also done subconsciously. Um, and this involves, the whole thing, emotions and energy work. So if we behave in a different way that breaks the pattern, um, then we are doing something different. We are making a change and we are healing. So if you have a different response than your parents or your grandparents, you're choosing a different path. You're literally creating a different reality. So if you keep doing the same thing as them, even if you don't do it on purpose, then the outcome cannot be different. The wound will keep on repeating. But if you choose a different path, something that comes, from love, then you can heal this wound. And that means that this wound will not be passed on to your children, or in general even to humanity. So I believe we do this through love vibrations, like I said, always trying to come from a loving place, and also especially forgiveness. So forgive your parents, forgive your grandparents if they hurt you. They weren't doing it on purpose. Okay, maybe some people would, but in general, I believe parents are trying their best. So forgive them, understand that they didn't know better, and just let it go. Don't hold on to these fears, these beliefs, and these emotions that are not even yours. Just take it, transmute it, heal it, and let it go. And this would create space for your for your emotions, for love. It creates space for something good. And I believe this is a very important job, like I said. And it's actually incredible when you do it and you see in your life how this change affects your life, but also your family, your parents, or whoever is involved in this. From a personal experience, I can say I did something like this, and I can say that it actually made a difference. I thought that my parents would never change in certain things, and because for years it never happened, and I was, ready to give up. But then I learned that if I just transmute this pain, and I did all this self-analysis and everything, um, this can actually work. And it wasn't about having them be different. This is important. You shouldn't have an expectation of them to be different. You're doing this work for yourself. And once I surrendered and I let go, and I, took their pain and all of their toxic things that they sent to me, and I just worked on it just one time, then I kid you not, some things have changed. I'm not saying that they're perfect. I'm not saying that all the past toxic patterns are gone. I'm just saying that there was a change and there was more space for love and healing. So that's all I have for today. I just wanted to talk about this, and again, hopefully someone can benefit from this. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you.